morning, everybody. Brian McDougall with the McDougall Group at RE/MAX. I'm here this morning with Daniel Wang, the owner of the Richmond branch of the Co-operators. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Brian.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. This is kind of ongoing in our series of information for our clients. We're trying to provide some valuable information for home ownership. And today we're going to talk with Daniel about strata insurance policies and the different components of that, liability, contents, those types of things. So first off, Daniel, we just want to maybe get you to go over the different components of insurance for strata property owners.
Absolutely, Brian. What you have in a condo policy, which we're talking about, is a set of components which would include personal contents, that would include coverage against earthquake, water damage, sewer backup. These are the basic components of any policy. You would also have coverage against damage to your improvements and betterments, which we'll be talking about soon. And the last one would be your personal liability coverage.
So Daniel, I guess secondly, we've all heard about water damage and the concerns that causes. So maybe just step us through what a policy would cover and strata deductibles and things like that.
Okay,
So.
Absolutely. So if we specifically focus on the strata deductible, what typically happens is your bathtub runs over, for instance, or your toilet tank breaks, and water spills and causes damage to common property. Typically, strata would get involved to fix that damage to common property. Unfortunately, right now that deductible is increasing, and we've had cases where it goes up to $250,000.
Wow.
So essentially, the policy for the strata is not going to get involved until you hit that limit of $250,000, which means that anything underneath it is your responsibility as the condo owner. And it's critical, therefore, that when you discuss your coverage needs with your insurance advisor, that you let them be aware that there's this kind of cost involved when there's damage, when you cause damage, and they will then fix or amend your policy accordingly. Because otherwise, you're going to be personally on the hook when that invoice comes to you, and not many people have $250,000 in their back pocket.
Right. So I guess it would be a good idea for a client when they're applying to, if they're going to come into the cooperators in Richmond, and they would actually bring a copy of the strata policy. So you guys would know.
Yeah, absolutely. We strongly recommend that. And because everything is done electronically these days, they can even scan it and send it to us.
Right, yes.
Now, the other thing as well is that deductible, that strata deductible, has a nasty habit of increasing every year. Just because the strata policy, they want to keep the premium down. So one of the ways of doing it is jacking up that deductible. So Don't assume that if it's $10,000 this year, it's going to stay $10,000 forever. So keep an eye on it, and when your policy renews with the co-operators or with your advisor, just make sure you have a copy of your strata policy just to match.
Right, and that's typically provided with your AGM notice. They typically provide the strata policy at that time. So, Daniel, one other question: if somebody's purchasing a strata property, that the previous owner had a leak and there was an insurance claim on that, is there any sort of an impact or anything that our buyer should be concerned about?
If that claim was belonged to that previous owner, it has no impact on the new owner's policy. Having said that, it's always important, if you know there was a claim, to make sure that it's documented.
Yes.
That maybe if it's a water claim, the plumber has signed off on it, and that you have a written record of that. Because what you don't want is to have the same problem repeat itself, and now you own that problem.
Yes.
And if it does happen, you at least have documentation to go back to the plumber and seek redress in this particular case. Because otherwise, once you've purchased the property, you own it and you own its problems.
Yes. So Daniel, some of our clients are investors, so they're actually purchasing a condo property and they want to rent it out. So I know we've talked a bit about the strata policy. So let's just say that I'm an investor. I'm going to purchase a condo and I'm going to put a tenant in there. So maybe just step us through what my requirement would be as the owner of the condo, and then what we should insist our tenants have in terms of policies.
Okay,
there, so.
You actually, good point, you're talking about two policies suddenly. One is the one that belongs to the owner, the investor, and so if you think about what we just discussed about someone moving into that unit, extract the personal contents. The owner investor has no personal contents in that unit. Having said that, they're still responsible for improvements and betterments if they've made any. They would, we would strongly recommend they get rental income protection.
Okay.
For the simple reason that if there's water damage to the unit, the tenant is out. the mortgage still being owed.
Right, good point, yes.
And you certainly don't want to have your place foreclosed for non-payment of that mortgage loan. So your policy will help towards that. And you also need liability insurance because as a landlord, you might be responsible for maybe the carpet peeling off, somebody tripping over. So all these things. On top of that, you also will be getting through your policy that strata contingent deductible,
Yes.
which we talked about.
Yep. So if a tenant, let's just say that you have a tenant that moves in and they tell you they've had the policy, they have a policy, but they don't. So ultimately the buck would stop with you, so to speak, right? As the owner, the strata would come back to you for any sort of liability or water damage claims.
You are correct. When there's a claim originating from the unit that you own, strata will turn to you. They have no relationship or obligation towards the tenant and vice versa, then the tenant could have skipped town. So all the fingers will be pointing at you, and you better make sure as the owner, whether you are here or overseas, that you have the right kind of coverage. So it's important that you speak to an advisor, sit down, explain the situation, and we'll do the numbers for you. We'll give you the proper coverage. It's regardless of the premium, it's worth the hassle.
Yes, yeah, no, it sounds very important. Let's just say I purchase an old condo and I do a beautiful reno. I totally renovated, new kitchen, new bathrooms. It's a 1970s or 80s built condo. So if the building burns down, how can I protect myself against all that money that I've put into this condo? So
good question, and we're seeing a lot of it these days where people go into old units and renovate it completely, and it's actually cheaper than buying into a brand new or newfangled unit.
Yes.
So that amount of money that you put in, it could be $5,000, $50,000, $100,000 or $200,000. That is not covered by your strata master policy. Your strata master policy will actually back out of the whole deal if there's a fire or water damage to your unit.
Yes.
So this is where you need to come to your insurer and explain what it is you've put into that unit above and beyond the regular drywall and the plain hardwood, not even hardwood floor, the old tatty carpet.
Yes.
So we can protect you in the event of a loss. Otherwise, you could be seeing yourself paying for a second renovation
Right,
out of your pocket.
because they would only cover sort of as built back in 1980
Absolutely,
or 75.
yeah. The grey drywall, the
Yeah,
old carpet,
yeah.
the old whatever you had in your kitchen.
Yes. Yeah.
And right now, with new technologies, I mean, you could have done all kinds of fancy things to your unit.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are not covered under your strata master
Yeah.
policy, so don't expect them to come in and help you out.
Yeah. So Daniel, final question. I guess none of us, we always hope that we never have to file a claim, but if we're in the unfortunate circumstances where we do, what do you recommend for our clients in terms of capturing some sort of record of what they've owned? Is it photos, videos, is it receipts, that type of thing? What do you recommend?
Good question, Brian. In the olden days, people would keep receipts. Unfortunately, we know that receipts fade with time, or if there's a fire, they just get burnt down, or if there's a theft, they get taken away. So we're recommending all our clients right now to use their smartphones and take digital pictures of every aspect of their home. May that be the sofa that you have your TV set, or your expensive clothes and your jewelry items, even specialized bikes as well.
Right.
And if you can zoom in and get a macro shot of perhaps the serial number, that's even better.
Mm-hmm.
Upload that to the cloud. When there's a claim, that's what you give to your adjuster. Because trying to rely on memory at the time of claim is a very difficult thing. You're probably emotionally messed up.
Yes.
So then you give it to the adjuster. They will love you infinitely for it because you've made their job easier suddenly.
Yes.
And you have a catalog of what you lost, and they'll essentially cut you a check or send you to wherever you need to go to replace these items.
Yeah, well, great advice. So, Daniel, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you, Brian.
I really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
So, yeah, we appreciate the on-location filming here today, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.